The Offshore Pirate, Part 2. This is a LibriVox recording. All LibriVox recordings are in the public domain. Reading by Bologna Times. 5 o'clock robed down from the sun and plumped soundlessly into the sea. The golden collar widened into a glittering island, and a faint breeze that had been playing with the edges of the awning and swaying one of those dangling blue slippers became suddenly freighted with song. It was a chorus of men in close harmony and in perfect rhythm to an accompanying sound of oars dealing the blue waters. Ardita lifted her head and listened. Carrots and peas, beans on their knees, pigs in the seas, lucky fellows. Blow us a breeze, blow us a breeze, blow us a breeze with your bellows. Ardita's brow wrinkled in astonishment. Sitting very still, she listened eagerly as the chorus took up a second verse. Onions and beans, Marshalls and Deans, Goldbergs and Greens and Costellos. Blow us a breeze, blow us a breeze, blow us a breeze with your bellows. With an exclamation, she tossed her book to the desk, where it sprawled at a straddle, and hurried to the rail. 50 feet away, a large rowboat was approaching, containing 7 men, 6 of them rowing, and one standing up in the stern, keeping time to their song with an orchestra leader's baton. Oysters and rocks, sawdust and socks, who could make clocks out of cellos? The leader's eyes suddenly rested on Ardita, who was leaning over the rail spellbound with curiosity. He made a quick movement with his baton, and the singing instantly ceased. She saw that he was the only white man in the boat. The 6 rowers were Negroes. Narcissus ahoy! He called politely. What's the idea of all the discord? Demanded Ardita cheerfully. Is this the varsity crew from the county nut farm? By this time the boat was scraping the side of the yacht, and a great bulking Negro in the bow turned round and grasped the ladder. Thereupon the leader left his position in the stern, and before Ardita had realized his intention, he ran up the ladder and stood breathless before her on the deck. The women and children will be spared, he said briskly. All crying babies will be immediately drowned, and all males put in double irons. Digging her hands excitedly down into the pockets of her dress, Ardita stared at him, speechless with astonishment. He was a young man, with a scornful mouth, and the bright blue eyes of a healthy baby, set in a dark, sensitive face. His hair was pitch black, damp and curly, the hair of a Grecian statue gone brunette. He was trimly built, trimly dressed, and graceful as an agile quarterback. Well, I'll be a son of a gun, she said dazedly. They eyed each other coolly. Do you surrender the ship? Is this an outburst of wit? Demanded Ardita. Are you an idiot, or just being initiated to some fraternity? I asked you if you surrendered the ship. I thought this country was dry, said Ardita disdainfully. Have you been drinking fingernail enamel? You better get off this yacht. What? The young man's voice expressed incredulity. Get off the yacht! You heard me! He looked at her for a moment, as if considering what she had said. No, said his scornful mouth slowly. No, I won't get off the yacht. You can get off it if you wish. Going to the rail, he gave a curt command, and immediately the crew of the rowboat scrambled up the ladder and ranged themselves in line before him. A coal-black and burly darky at one end, and a miniature mulatto of 4 feet 9 at 2 other. They seemed to be uniformly dressed in some sort of blue costume, ornamented with dust, mud, and tatters. Over the shoulder of each was slung a small, heavy-looking white sack, and under their arms they carried large black cases, apparently containing musical instruments. 'Tention! Commanded the young man, snapping his own heels together crisply. Right dress, Front! Step out here, babe! The smallest negro took a quick step forward and saluted. Take command. Go down below, catch the crew, and tie him up. All except the engineer. Bring him up to me. Oh, and pile those bags by the rail there. Yas, sir! Babe saluted again, and wheeling about, motioned for the 5 others to gather about him. Then, after a short whispered consultation, they all filed noiselessly down the companionway. Now, said the young man cheerfully to Ardita, who had witnessed this last scene in withering silence, if you will swear on your honor, as a flapper, which probably isn't worth much, that you'll keep that spoiled little mouth of yours tight shut for 48 hours, you can row yourself ashore in our rowboat. Otherwise what? Otherwise you're going to sea in a ship. With a little sigh, as for a crisis well past, the young man sank into the settee Ardita had lately vacated and stretched his arms lazily. The corners of his mouth relaxed appreciatively as he looked round at the rich striped awning, the polished brass, and the luxurious fittings of the deck. His eye fell on the book, and then on the exhausted lemon. Stonewall Jackson claimed that lemon juice cleared his head. Your head feel pretty clear? Ardita disdained to answer. Because inside of 5 minutes you'll have to make a clear decision whether it's go or stay. He picked up the book and opened it curiously. The Revolt of the Angels. Sounds pretty good. French, eh? He stared at her with new interest. You French? No. What's your name? Farnham. Farnham what? Ardita Farnham. Well, Ardita, no use standing up there and chewing out the insides of your mouth. You ought to break those nervous habits while you're young. Come over here and sit down. Ardita took a carved jade case from her pocket, extracted a cigarette, and lit it with a conscious coolness, though she knew her hand was trembling a little. Then she crossed over with her supple, swinging walk, and sitting down in the other settee, blew a mouthful of smoke at the awning. You can't get me off this yacht, she said steadily, and you haven't got very much sense if you think you'll get far with it. My uncle'll have wireless zigzagging all over this ocean by 6:30. She looked quickly at his face, caught anxiety stamped there plainly in the faintest depression of the mouth's corners. It's all the same to me, she said, shrugging her shoulders. 'Tisn't my yacht. I don't mind going for a couple of hours' cruise. I'll even lend you that book so you'll have something to read on the revenue boat that takes you up to Sing Sing. He laughed scornfully. If that's advice, you needn't bother. This is part of a plan arranged before I ever knew this yacht existed. If it hadn't have been this one, it'd have been the next one we passed anchored along the coast. Who are you? Demanded Ardita suddenly. And what are you? You've decided not to go ashore? I never even faintly considered it. We're generally known, he said, all 7 of us, as Curtis Carlyle and his 6 black buddies, late of the Winter Garden and the Midnight Frolic. You're singers? We were until today. At present, due to those white bags you see there, we're fugitives from justice, and if the reward offered for our capture hasn't by this time reached $20,000, I miss my guess. What's in the bags? Asked Ardita curiously. Well, he said, for the present we'll call it mud. Florida mud. End of Part 2.